Welcome to Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. Each week we bring you insights from the playmakers, deal makers, and rule makers in the world of sports. I'll give you my take on some of the items of the week using my 30 years of experience doing deals for teams, leagues, and players in the $750 billion business of sports. Plus, we'll talk with a central figure in the sports world. The views expressed in this podcast are my own and do not represent the views of Reuters. Let's get started. Wimbledon is trying to crack down on misbehavior by tennis players. The tournament's announced it'll pay for drug testing of players ahead of this year's tournament, so-called out-of-competition testing, which can be conducted at any time when a player is not actively involved in an event, is considered to be the best way to catch dopers. The move follows the admission by five-time Grand Slam champion Maria Sharapova last month that she tested positive for a banned substance. Wimbledon will also provide additional analysis of match data and betting patterns at this year's championships to try to detect any possible match fixing. There were no such concerns last year, but pro tennis is struggling to regain its on-court integrity just in time for the French, Wimbledon, and U.S. Opens. New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady once again facing a 4-game suspension. An appeals court restored the penalty for his role in Deflategate, or the removing of air from footballs used in a 2015 playoff game. The appeals court reversed a federal judge's ruling that had overturned NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell's decision to penalize Brady. U.S. Circuit Court Judge Barrington Parker said that under the players' collective bargaining agreement, Goodell had especially broad authority as an arbitrator to decide whether to confirm Brady's suspension. The National Football League Players Association, the union which pursued the court challenge, said in a statement it was disappointed and would consider all of our options. The dispute is much less about the facts of air pressure of footballs or Tom Brady's behavior. It's all about protecting the bargained-for powers of the office of the commissioner in football and all other sports. And whether the first pick is a quarterback from North Dakota or from California, the real winner of the 2016 NFL Draft, once again, the city of Chicago. According to a study commissioned by the Chicago Sports Commission, last year's NFL Draft had an $81.6 million economic impact on the Windy City, including creating 2,095 temporary and construction jobs and 846 new permanent jobs. By the way, no truth to the rumor that the Bears get an extra draft pick because of the city's efforts. For more on this, here's my conversation with the group's executive director, Cara Bachman.
For the second year in a row, Chicago hosts the 2016 NFL Draft, the weekend. Everybody excited about that, but a broader mandate, the Chicago Sports Commission, Department of Choose Chicago, which is the official destination marketing organization for the city of Chicago, economic impact, high-volume events, political events, really the key to bringing major events to the city. Cara Bachman, how are you?
I'm great, Rick. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thank you very much. So how does somebody who plays rough and tumble hockey in upstate New York, undergrad, get ready for a rough and tumble political life as the chief event spokesperson for the city of Chicago?
Well, I think they are a nice parallel to one another, actually. Playing hockey definitely, I would say, prepare you for a life working in sports in a big city, and we're having a great time in Chicago doing just that.
And you can dish it out too, I'm sure, which is really important because, one of the theories we have in sports business is that people seem to think it's all roses when it comes to bringing in events, but it is cutthroat competition for industry relocation or attraction like a sporting event or a widget company, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. I would say that also a good parallel and comparison that would be fair would be, what happens on the field of play, literally, and what happens in the, field of business that's tied to that field of play. When you're looking at the impact that certain events can bring to a city, the social benefits, positive impact it can bring to a community, there's all the reason that there'd be a lot of competition among cities and hosts. We talked about this, but the draft brought over 200,000 attendees into Grant Park over the 3 days. There's 8.8 million TV viewers and almost 37,000 room nights. So when you're looking at driving economic impact in the city, those are definitely statistics you want to see, and those are definitely numbers you'll fight to get into your city.
When you fight to get the draft for the first year, second year is maybe easier because you already have it. Are you kind of given parameters of the kinds of packages and the bid package that you're willing to negotiate and how far you can go? Understood that it's like anything else when you attract business, but are you kind of given the perspective of how extra hard you can fight to attract these big events like any business?
Yeah, I think to be vague, unfortunately, it is like any business where, you are weighing all the variables and, what risk do you want to take for what level of reward, and will you be able to obtain that reward? Will the risk you take pay off? Will the investment you take pay off? I think when you look at a brand like the NFL, which arguably one of the greatest marketing machines there ever is, potentially ever will be, there's, I'd say, a huge upside to being able to partner with them and allow them to do what they do in your city and watch your city benefit from something they've created over, for the draft over 50 years. So there's a lot of history, there's a lot of following. I would say the upside is massive.
The other interesting issue is how the naysayers fight for the last paragraph in the economic journals about how sporting events, stadiums, facilities have no impact because people spend their money on other stuff. Talk a little bit about that issue and what you would say to those folks. There are always people who will argue that the sports is not a worthy public investment.
I would have two responses to that, really. One, first, I'd be like, you're welcome that you have a job and you have content to talk about it not being anything, because we are doing our job of bringing in sports. I always find that interesting. You see endless amount of conversation, dialogue, publications, editorials, blogs, social media. Yes, a lot of positive, but those naysayers that we're talking about, I kind of want to say you're welcome, that they have something to talk about, because it seems as if that could be considered job creation on the part that we're bringing in these events. So clearly we're making their world go round. But, on the other side of it, I would argue that sport is significantly higher ROI than other tourism and visitation opportunities because of the story that it allows a city, a host, to tell so organically. When you're looking at, a couple events that we've hosted recently, we've had the New Zealand All Blacks come to Chicago, and we've hosted NCAA championships and Big Ten soccer, international triathlon world championships, and people tell the story organically. They enjoy sport. Hosting sporting events creates an incredibly positive atmosphere in which people are discussing something relevant, discussing something positively, and showcasing the entire event, which in our case for the draft happens to be the gorgeous landscape and profile and skyline of our city. So when your conventions are extremely important business to us as well, but you don't see the same, of course, media attention or attendee kind of social engagement as you would see with the creation of a sports event.
The other piece of this specifically, and I know people are just trying to quantify it, you talk about the NFL draft bringing about $115 million of media marketing value, visibility Chicago otherwise would have not obtained. How do you quantify that, and how do you make people understand the importance of that, especially in the political and business arena?
So Choose Chicago has gone through a difficult time with a lot of budget and funding issues throughout government. We are a combination of private and public sector funds, and our budget has always been tight. We've always done a lot with a little, and collectively it's about $30 to $31 million entire operating budget of Choose Chicago. You look at competition that we face from New York, Orlando, and just don't even include Vegas because they're an outlier. Their marketing budgets just for a leisure marketing campaign, general marketing, international marketing of their destination, their city, is, in some cases, the amount of our entire operating budget. So when we're able to host an event and have a property look at Chicago as the opportunity not just to have the correct facilities and the correct backdrop, but, they want to be in, we're getting points for central location. We're getting points being recognized for the fact that we have 2 international airports and visitation to Chicago is easy. It's often, it's affordable. They're looking at all of those variables. They're looking at how many Fortune 500 companies that Chicago has. And all of those then kind of put our score up, make us a very attractive destination, and then allows us to host an event that then triples, quadruples, the media value that we'd be spending, our budget for 4 years before we could reach that.
And clearly people need to understand that as well. A couple more questions. First, Olympics. Great bid, probably better than a lot of others. Everybody could argue politics, but this was really politics. Are you over the psychological issues? Do you feel like the Olympic bid process was a good one overall that you learned from and actually built a legacy from? What's your overall take of that process?
Yeah, Rick, it was a huge learning experience and a huge uplifting, sport, creating that positive influence in an environment, in a community, and that's what the Olympics really meant to Chicago. It was an incredibly diverse bid, incredibly diverse group of people that came together with one goal of hosting the 2016 Olympic Games, and there was a sting, and there always will be a little bit of sting, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in that. But it's left Chicago in a better place, and we continue to champion the idea and the commitment we made to the IOC that Chicago is an Olympic city, and we will continue to strive to be an Olympic city. We'll do that by creating opportunity in sport, celebrating sport, continuing to promote the Olympic values and giving opportunity to our youth in those Olympic sports.
Everybody doesn't like to lose, but you did it right, and obviously should be very, very proud of your accomplishment and everybody else's. Social responsibility, a couple more, a really important issue. We talked about it last week. Every major event, if done right, ought to have some kind of a legacy attached to it, and there are some social benefits that might not otherwise occur but for the business of bringing in those kind of events. How important is that to you?
It's really important, and again, I think the opportunity for that is limitless, and one thing that's really exciting about what we do here is, when we're strategizing about the events coming to Chicago, that we want to stay in Chicago, we're looking at ways create economies of scale and to make sure that we are, of course, capitalizing and maximizing on the ROI. And I think hosting events in multi-years definitely puts you in the position to do that. Yes, from an economic perspective, but certainly from a social responsibility, social impact, community impact, benefit perspective. So once you get something built, you have the foundation. What more can you do? And I think that's definitely an approach we've taken, and we're starting to see a lot of those benefits come to life with hosting the draft in a second consecutive year.
Thanks a lot. Speak with you soon.
Thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. The producer of the show, Alex Cohen. Associate producer, Bethel Habte. Assistance provided by Tanner Simpkins and Carla Swadek. And the executive editor of Reuters Digital, Dan Colarusso.